No one remembered who wrote the rules of war. But across the Orion Arm, everyone obeyed them. The Codex Bellum governed combat. It forbade targeting civilians, outlawed weapons causing unnecessary suffering, and demanded honor even in victory. Civilizations rose and fell, but these rules were absolute, predictable, civilized, until humanity arrived. Commander Tarek Voss of the Kethri Union had lived by the Codex his entire life. Every battle he'd fought, every victory he'd claimed, had followed its strictures. But today, everything would change. The briefing chamber was tense. Representatives from 12 species filled the room, scaled, feathered, translucent, but all shared the same unease. At the center floated a holographic projection of a blue-green planet, Earth. "They call themselves humans," said the envoy, voice trembling. "They were recently inducted into the Galactic Accord." Tarek raised an eyebrow. "Then why are we here?" "Because they've declared war," the envoy admitted. Shock rippled through the room. "That's impossible," one delegate whispered. "They were briefed on the Codex before contact." "They were," the envoy said, "but they replied, 'That's nice.'" Silence. Then disbelief. Then laughter. Short and uneasy. Tarek's jaw tightened. "Who's their target?" The envoy tapped the console. The projection zoomed in on Kethri-controlled systems. Tarek felt ice crawl along his spine. Us. 3 days later, the first attack hit. A hospital ship. Tarek watched in disbelief as the vessel, clearly marked with universal medical insignias, exploded. "Must have been a mistake," his lieutenant said. "No," Tarek replied. "They waited until it was vulnerable." The second strike came an hour later, an unarmed civilian convoy. Kethri shields were barely up when the humans appeared. Communication attempts failed. The human ships didn't answer, didn't hesitate. They simply fired. Thousands of refugees were gone within minutes. "They didn't even try to hold territory," the lieutenant said, voice shaking. "Because they don't care," Tarek said quietly. The third encounter was with a full Kethri battle group. Finally, a proper engagement. Tarek ordered a standard hail. "Identify yourselves. Declare intent. Follow protocol." A pause. Then a voice, calm, almost amused. "Terms? You think this has terms?" Tarek snapped. "You are violating the Codex. Cease hostilities." The human laughed. "Yeah, we were told. But we don't follow it." Then they attacked. Not in formation, not predictably. They scattered, striking from impossible angles. One ship rammed a destroyer. Another detonated itself in the middle of a formation. Humans used debris, wreckage, even their own damaged vessels as weapons. Chaos redefined itself. By the battle's end, half the Kethri fleet was destroyed. Survivors retreated, shaken and unprepared for the unpredictable enemy. Tarek stood alone on the command deck, staring at the empty void where his forces had been. The Codex didn't just limit action, it shaped thought, strategy, expectation. The humans had none. "Commander," the envoy's voice came through. "We're convening an emergency council. Every species demands clarification on human conduct." Tarek let out a slow breath. "Clarification," he whispered. "There is none. They don't have rules." The emergency council convened in orbit over the neutral station Verne 9. Delegates from 20 species crowded the chamber, their voices overlapping in confusion, anger, and fear. None of them had ever faced an enemy like this, one that ignored centuries of established combat doctrine. Tarek Voss stood at the center, silent but observant. He had survived the first encounters, but the Council was a new kind of battlefield. Words were now weapons, and fear had teeth. "We must respond logically," said Kyra Length, a reptilian tactician from the Dralkai High Command. "We analyze patterns. Humans are new. They must have weaknesses." Tarek shook his head. "They don't follow patterns. Nothing they do is predictable. They're not just breaking the codex, they're ignoring strategy itself." A tall, insectoid delegate clicked nervously. "Then, how do we defend ourselves? Their attacks are chaotic. Our fleets cannot anticipate them." "They adapt," Tarek said grimly. "Every time we try a standard formation, they find a way around it. Every defense we've studied fails." The Council projected data from the first 3 encounters. Each attack had been surgical, yet arbitrary. Hospital ships destroyed. Civilian convoys obliterated. Ketheri warships annihilated. And in every case, no human fleet remained to hold the territory. They struck and vanished. "They're unpredictable," muttered a delegate from the Ilari Collective, wings fluttering. "We've never fought like this before." "No," Tarek agreed. "We haven't fought them before." The first attempt at a counter-offensive was disastrous. The Ketheri fleet, bolstered with Dralkai and Ilari allies, moved in formation toward the nearest human entry point. Sensors scanned, shields charged, weapons armed. Standard battle doctrine in place. And then it began. Humans did not meet the fleet head-on. They split into dozens of tiny, almost invisible craft, weaving through debris fields, asteroid belts, and even the wreckage of their own attacks. They struck from angles no one thought possible. A missile detonated, sending a shockwave that disabled shields on half the Allied fleet. "They're using the environment against us?" a junior officer asked, stunned. Tarek didn't answer. He only watched, calculating the impossible. Humans had no formation, no reserves, no chain of command that made sense. Yet every attack was devastatingly effective. By the end of the engagement, 2 cruisers were completely destroyed, 3 more crippled, and the human ships vanished as quickly as they had appeared. The Council erupted into chaos. "How can we fight a species that refuses the rules?" one delegate screamed. Tarek finally spoke. "We can't. Not yet. We need to rethink what war means. We can't fight humans like we fight others, because they aren't like others. They don't play by rules we understand, and they won't wait for us to adapt." Hours later, Tarek walked the empty corridors of the Ketheri flagship. He passed rows of technicians and analysts poring over data feeds, but no one looked up. Fear had silenced them. A young officer approached him, trembling. "Sir, they're attacking colonies on the periphery. Our reinforcements can't get there in time." Tarek's eyes narrowed. "Then we evacuate what we can and delay them where possible. But understand this, we are no longer fighting according to the Codex. We must be willing to break every assumption about war if we are to survive." The officer paled. "Break assumptions? Sir, you mean fight like them?" Tarek's gaze drifted toward the stars, cold and unflinching. "Not like them, but in ways they can't anticipate. Otherwise, humanity will tear the Orion arm apart, one system at a time." The humans' next strike proved Tarek's fears correct. An orbital mining facility, rich in rare elements, was supposed to be heavily defended. Sensors detected dozens of incoming human craft, smaller than scouts, faster than interceptors. By the time the defense fleet realized what was happening, the humans had already infiltrated the station's core. No shields, No communication. No warning. The facility self-destructed, taking half the defense fleet with it. The survivors watched the aftermath in horror. Human ships hovered for seconds, as if observing the destruction, then slipped away into hyperspace before anyone could retaliate. "They don't just attack," whispered an Ilari delegate. "They teach fear. They redefine the rules, or destroy them entirely." Tarek clenched his fists. "This isn't war. This is something else. Something beyond our understanding." The council reconvened at midnight. Every delegate knew it. Humans had shown them the limits of their own conventions. Traditional warfare was obsolete. Diplomacy had failed. And intelligence was powerless when the enemy refused to behave logically. "Humanity doesn't have rules," Tarek concluded, voice low but firm. "And that is their advantage. They fight in ways we cannot predict, counter, or negotiate with. Every assumption we've made about war has been shattered. And they aren't finished yet." Silence fell across the chamber. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy understood something terrifying. The humans had rewritten the definition of combat. And no one was ready for it. Weeks had passed since the Ketheri fleet's first major engagement with humanity, yet the human attacks showed no pattern, no strategy, and no mercy. Entire systems were destabilized, yet no human forces lingered to claim them. Commander Tarek Voss reviewed the latest reports aboard the flagship Iron Resolve. Sensor data streamed in, empty systems, destroyed colonies, and fleeting energy signatures moving at impossible velocities. "They're ghosts," muttered Lieutenant Morrow Keel, tracing the path of a destroyed transport convoy. "Every time we think we've cornered them, they vanish." Tarek didn't answer. The humans were doing more than attacking. They were teaching the galaxy that the codex, the rules, were meaningless. The next strike came at Draxel Prime, a heavily fortified mining colony. The Ketheri had stationed a full battle group, expecting another human raid. Every sensor was active, every turret manned, every interceptor ready. And the humans did something no one could predict. Instead of attacking head-on, dozens of tiny craft dropped into the planet's atmosphere. They weren't armed with standard weapons. They carried chemical drones, micro-explosives, and hacking swarms. The battle group fired volleys of plasma, but the drones split apart mid-flight, evading every shot. Some landed in the orbital station and detonated silently, severing power grids and communications. Others infiltrated supply convoys, sabotaging engines. Within minutes, the station's defenses were crippled, and the humans were gone, without engaging in a single direct confrontation. Lieutenant Keel stared at the damage reports. "They're fighting without fighting." Tarek's eyes were cold. "They're redefining what it means to attack. We're not prepared for this. And the galaxy isn't either." Tarek requested an emergency council meeting. The other species were frantic. Some argued for massive retaliation, others for negotiation. But one point was unanimous. The humans could not be predicted. "We can't fight an enemy that doesn't play by our rules," hissed a Dralkai admiral. "Every countermeasure fails." Tarek leaned forward. "No, we fight an enemy that doesn't play by our rules by becoming unpredictable ourselves. But it's not enough to imitate them. We must understand that they operate beyond logic. That is the only way we survive." "Beyond logic," a Quarren delegate demanded. "They are humans. They have limits." Tarek shook his head. "Limits? Perhaps. But whatever those limits are, they don't follow the patterns we expect. They will always exploit our assumptions." The humans' next maneuver shocked everyone. A remote Ketheri research station in the Viren Belt reported a sudden collapse of all sensor systems. The station's crew watched as dozens of human ships appeared, but not to attack. Instead, they began rearranging debris. Satellites, derelict ships, even asteroids were methodically moved to block major hyperspace lanes. There was no damage, no casualties, no message, just an invisible hand reshaping the environment. "What is their objective?" Lieutenant Keel asked. Tarek's jaw tightened. "To control the battlefield before we even realize there is one. They fight chaos, and in chaos, they dominate." By the time the Ketheri fleet arrived, the station had been evacuated, the debris fully rearranged, and the humans gone. No one could predict where they would strike next. Frustration mounted across the Council. Every species had long-standing war doctrines, tactics perfected over millennia. But humans ignored every principle. They targeted civilians, military, infrastructure, and even their own resources, then disappeared. "They don't follow the Codex," an Ilari delegate whispered. "They don't follow anything." Tarek nodded. "They understand war not as rules or strategy, but as influence, control, fear. That is why they are effective. We fight in terms of battles. They fight in terms of existence." Then came the final warning of Part 3. A human fleet attacked a neutral trade station. It wasn't a strike. It was a lesson. Over 3 hours, every defensive system was disabled without a single life lost. The humans appeared, hacked the station's navigation, redistributed cargo, and left. When communications finally reached the station, the message was simple. "Rules are suggestions. We are humans. Adjust accordingly." Tarek read it aloud to the Council. Every delegate fell silent. Some muttered curses. Others stared in disbelief. "They're teaching the galaxy that nothing is sacred," Tarek said quietly. "No law, no life, no order. We are not just fighting humans. We are fighting an idea. That war can have no rules. And if we can't adapt, we will lose everything." By the end of Part 3, the galaxy realized the terrifying truth. Humans didn't just fight differently, they fought beyond comprehension. Traditional defenses, honor codes, even alliances had no meaning when the opponent didn't acknowledge them. Tarek stood on the deck of Iron Resolve, staring at the stars. The humans were already there, somewhere, watching, waiting, and rewriting the rules again. And one thought burned in his mind, cold and clear. We can't win if we don't understand what winning even means anymore. The Orion arm had changed forever. Every species, from the crystalline Zytherians to the feathered Ilari, now knew one truth. Humans did not fight like anyone else. Commander Tarek Voss paced the bridge of Iron Resolve, reviewing reports of the latest human operations. Entire supply lines had vanished overnight. Fortified colonies had been sabotaged from within by microdrones. Not a single human ship had been lost. "They're everywhere," Lieutenant Morrow Keel said, frustration edging his voice. "Everywhere we look, we find only destruction left behind, and no humans to face." Tarek didn't respond. Humans weren't just fighting. They were rewriting the very definition of war. The humans' next maneuver was audacious. On the planet Sereth Prime, a joint Ketheri-Ilari fleet waited for an expected incursion. Standard reconnaissance drones were launched, orbital defenses readied, and ground troops stationed. All the data suggested a direct attack. Hours passed. Then the humans arrived, not with fleets, but with messages. Holographic transmissions appeared across every communications channel. "We see you. We know your plans. We will be where you are not." No attack followed. Instead, humans began sabotaging logistics, rerouting convoys, disabling orbital refineries, and spreading misinformation to every local population. By the time Ketheri forces tried to respond, human craft had vanished. "They're not just attacking," Lieutenant Keel said in disbelief. "They're teaching the galaxy fear, uncertainty." Tarek's jaw tightened. "They are fighting perception, not just ships. Every action destabilizes our assumptions. Every disappearance is a strategy." The Council of Allied Species convened again. Tensions were boiling. Many delegates called for a coordinated strike, even if it meant violating centuries-old treaties. "We must hit them hard now," a Dralkai admiral demanded. "Show them that chaos has consequences." Tarek raised a hand. "Consequences? We don't understand the rules they follow. Any strike we attempt will be anticipated or ignored. We cannot fight humans with conventional tactics." "Not yet." A quiet voice spoke from the corner. Lyric Dovan, a human liaison who had reluctantly joined the council before the attacks, leaned forward. "You think unpredictability is their only advantage," he said. "It isn't. They fight without fear, without honor, without hesitation. You can't predict humans because humans don't live by expectations. You can't bargain with them, reason with them. You survive by thinking like them, or dying by what you think is impossible." Murmurs swept through the chamber. Tarek knew the truth in those words. Humanity's advantage wasn't technology, wasn't numbers. It was mindset. The next strike confirmed it. A Ketheri shipyard, heavily fortified and shielded, was expected to be the next human target. Sensors detected dozens of approaching vessels, but none attacked conventionally. Instead, human craft infiltrated communication relays, networked with the shipyard's own systems, and began remotely dismantling weapons and shields. "No casualties," Keel muttered, "but all our defenses neutralized." "And they're gone," Tarek said quietly. "Before we even realize we've been attacked, it's already over." The Council had only one consensus. Humanity could not be fought with standard rules. Every defensive plan, every battle doctrine, every assumption about predictability had been shattered. But the humans' unpredictability went further. In the Orion Belt, humans used captured Ketheri ships against their former allies, not by boarding or firing, but by using subtle electromagnetic pulses to manipulate ship systems. Ships turned on each other, energy conduits overloaded, and entire formations collapsed without a shot being fired. "Psychological warfare," Keel whispered. "They're controlling fear as much as weapons." Tarek nodded. "Yes. They are not just fighting. They are teaching us that rules, patterns, and honor are vulnerabilities. Anything predictable can be exploited." The Council realized the terrifying truth. Humans weren't just winning battles. They were reshaping the galaxy's understanding of war itself. That night, Tarek stood alone on the observation deck. Stars stretched endlessly before him. Somewhere out there, the humans waited, silent, invisible, unpredictable. The galaxy was on edge, and the Codex Bellum, once the foundation of interstellar combat, lay in pieces. "Commander!" Lieutenant Keel's voice echoed behind him. Tarek didn't turn. "Keel, humanity isn't just an enemy. They are a lesson. And if we survive, we must learn it, or the Orion arm will fall, system by system." Keel swallowed hard. "And what do we do?" Tarek's eyes hardened. "We adapt. We change. Or we die." The humans had shown them chaos, unpredictability, and fear, but the galaxy was only beginning to understand what it truly meant to fight without rules. The galaxy had never been this tense. Every species, every fleet, every colony was on edge. The humans had redefined war, not with grand fleets or overwhelming numbers, but with chaos, fear, and unpredictability. Commander Tarek Voss stood on the bridge of Iron Resolve, staring at the starfield. Entire systems were destabilized. Supply lines vanished. Fortifications crumbled. And yet, the humans were nowhere to be seen. "They're everywhere and nowhere," Lieutenant Morrow Keel muttered. "Everywhere we anticipate, they aren't. Where we don't, they strike." Tarek's jaw tightened. "That's because they don't follow rules. Not patterns, not logic, not honor. We cannot fight them as we would any other species. We can only survive if we think like them." The humans' next strike was unlike anything the galaxy had seen. In the Celera expanse, a Ketheri fleet awaited them, confident in their numerical advantage and fortified position. But the humans didn't come in waves. They didn't attack. They sent messages first, holographic projections across every channel. "You think you can prepare. You think you can anticipate. You are wrong." Then the strike began, not with weapons, but with manipulation. The humans hacked fleet controls, rerouted hyperspace jump drives, and scrambled sensors. Entire formations collided or misfired. The battle was over before it began. Not a single human ship was lost. The council delegates watching the feed gasped. Every species realized the terrifying truth. Humans did not need to fight conventionally to destroy fleets. Their unpredictability was a weapon. In orbit above Verne 9, the humans escalated further. Ketheri and allied fleets attempted a coordinated strike against human supply lines. But the humans were already there, infiltrating systems via stealth drones, disabling weapons, and planting false navigational data. "What is their endgame?" demanded an Ilari admiral. "They destroy everything, yet hold nothing." Tarek shook his head. "It isn't about territory. It's about control. Chaos is their battlefield. Fear is their weapon. And the galaxy doesn't know how to fight that." Even the Zytherians, masters of strategic warfare, admitted defeat in private. Human unpredictability wasn't just a tactic. It was a philosophy, one that leveraged instinct, improvisation, and a complete disregard for what was allowed. Then came the psychological blow. A massive transmission flooded every communications channel across the Orion arm. The human's voice was calm, almost casual. "You have laws. We have none. You have rules. We have freedom. You think this is war? This is evolution. Adapt or die." Tarek felt a cold clarity settle in. This was the ultimate lesson humanity had delivered. Survival did not require adherence to codes, honor, or expectation. It required innovation, audacity, and a willingness to go beyond what others thought possible. Every species, every council, every fleet now understood one thing. The humans were teaching the galaxy a new rule of existence. There are no rules. Only humans. The final act came in the Orion cluster. A Ketheri stronghold, considered unassailable, was suddenly under attack. Human ships appeared simultaneously in dozens of locations, rifts, asteroid belts, even inside planetary atmospheres. They did not engage the defenses directly. Instead, they turned the stronghold against itself. Ships were rerouted into each other. Turrets misfired. Shields overloaded. The station's power grid collapsed, and the humans vanished before reinforcements could arrive. The Ketheri command staff was left in shock. It's like they are everywhere at once," whispered one officer. "They are," Tarek said. "And they aren't. The humans' message was clear. No system was safe, no fleet secure, no species prepared. They had shattered centuries of strategy, diplomacy, and law in a matter of weeks. In the aftermath, the Council reconvened one final time. Silence reigned. No one argued. No one proposed retaliation. The humans had rewritten the rules, and the galaxy had only one option: adapt or perish. Tarek spoke softly, the weight of the moment heavy in his voice. The humans have shown us the truth. War is no longer a matter of rules, fleets, or codes. It is a matter of will, improvisation, and audacity. If we hope to survive, we must abandon what we know. We must embrace uncertainty, or humanity will continue to teach us lessons we may not live to learn. Lieutenant Keel looked out the viewport at the stars. "Do you think we can?" Tarek's gaze was unwavering. "We will have to. Because humans don't stop. And they don't follow rules. Ever." Somewhere beyond known space, the humans moved on to the next system. They left devastation in their wake, but no one knew exactly why. No one could predict where they would strike next. All the galaxy could do was watch, and realize a terrifying truth. There were no rules in human war. Only humans themselves. The Codex Bellum was dead. Civilization had witnessed something far more dangerous. A species that refused limits, laughed at constraints, and fought on a level no one else could comprehend. And the lesson had only begun.